I thought my gender reveal party would be the happiest day of my life. Instead, it became the day my husband made a cruel joke that would haunt him for months. My name is Lyrics, and this is how one DNA test after my baby's birth gave me the most epic revenge he never saw coming. 30 of our closest family and friends gathered in our backyard that sunny Saturday afternoon, pink and blue decorations swaying in the breeze, everyone practically vibrating with excitement to find out if we were having a boy or a girl. I was 6 months pregnant, absolutely glowing with that maternal happiness everyone talks about, holding a black balloon filled with colored confetti that would reveal our baby's gender. My husband, Daxon, stood beside me with that charming smile I fell in love with 3 years ago, the same smile that made everyone at work call him the guy who could sell ice to an Eskimo. What I didn't know then was that this moment would become the catalyst for the most satisfying revenge story of my life. Daxon had been coming home late from work for months, claiming overtime to save money for the baby. His phone buzzed constantly with texts he'd quickly swipe away when I walked into the room, little red flags that made my pregnant brain wonder if I was being paranoid or if something was really wrong. Standing there, surrounded by our loved ones, I was ready to pop that balloon and celebrate our growing family when Daxon decided to crack a joke that would destroy our marriage in front of everyone we cared about. His best friends, Zephyr and Kylo, were already snickering beside him, buzzed from whatever pre-party drinking session they'd had. His sister Niven held up her phone to record what should have been a beautiful moment. My best friend Vera beamed with excitement, having spent weeks helping me plan every single detail of this celebration. That afternoon, Daxon humiliated me in ways I never thought possible from someone who claimed to love me. But what he didn't realize was that his cruel joke would give me the perfect idea for payback. 3 months later, when our son Orion was born, I would get a DNA test that confirmed my worst suspicions and gave me the ammunition for the most epic revenge reveal in social media history. This is the story of how a gender reveal party became the setup for the greatest comeback of my life, complete with divorce papers, a plane ticket, and a viral video that cost my ex-husband everything. Let me take you back to the beginning, before everything fell apart. 6 months into my pregnancy, I was living what I thought was my dream life. Daxon and I had been married for 2 years, together for 3, and we just bought our first house in a quiet suburban neighborhood with a big backyard perfect for raising kids. The white picket fence dream was finally mine, or so I believed. I worked as a marketing coordinator for a local tech company, a job I actually loved because it gave me the flexibility to work from home some days. Daxon was a construction supervisor, always talking about the big projects his crew was working on, how he was building our future, one job at a time. He had this way of making everything sound like an adventure, even mundane stuff like picking out paint colors for the nursery or assembling the crib that took him 3 attempts and 2 trips to Home Depot. The pregnancy had been everything I'd hoped for. Sure, I had morning sickness for the first trimester, but after that, I felt incredible. My skin was clear, my hair was thick and shiny, and I had that pregnancy glow everyone talks about. Daxon seemed excited too, constantly talking about teaching our kid to throw a football or ride a bike. He'd put his hands on my belly every night, talking to the baby about all the places he'd take them when they were older. Planning the gender reveal party became my obsession. I spent weeks researching ideas on Pinterest, ordering decorations, coordinating with the bakery for gender-neutral cupcakes, and making sure we had enough seating for everyone. I wanted it to be perfect because this felt like such a milestone moment. We'd been trying to get pregnant for over a year, and when it finally happened, I wanted to celebrate in a big way. Vera was my partner in crime for all the planning. She'd come over after work to help me string lights in the backyard and arrange the pink and blue flower arrangements I'd ordered from 3 different florists to get the perfect look. We spent hours debating whether to do a balloon pop, a cake cutting, or confetti cannons. I finally settled on the black balloon filled with colored confetti because it felt dramatic and fun, something that would photograph well for social media. The guest list included both our families, our closest friends, and a few co-workers. Daxon's parents were flying in from Portland, which was a big deal because his dad hated to travel. My parents were driving up from Sacramento, and my mom had already called me 5 times that week to ask if she could bring anything or help with setup. Even my grandmother, who was 83 and rarely left her assisted living facility, was coming with my aunt to be part of the celebration. Everything seemed perfect on the surface. Daxon would kiss my forehead every morning before work and ask how I was feeling. He'd bring home my favorite ice cream without me asking, and rub my feet when they were swollen. He talked about converting the spare bedroom into a nursery, and how he couldn't wait to be a dad. When people asked how he was handling the pregnancy, he'd joke that he was gaining sympathy weight and pat his slightly rounded belly. But looking back now, There were signs I chose to ignore. He started working late more frequently, claiming his boss was pushing hard to finish projects before the baby came, and he'd need time off. His phone was always face down on the counter, and he'd grab it quickly when it buzzed. When I asked about his day, his stories became vague and repetitive. He'd say he was exhausted from work, but then stay up late watching TV or playing video games with his headphones on. The gym membership was new too. He'd never been particularly interested in working out, but suddenly, he was going to the same gym where I did prenatal yoga classes with my trainer Kani. Daxon claimed he wanted to get in shape before becoming a dad, said he needed to be strong enough to keep up with a toddler. It seemed sweet at the time, this desire to be the best version of himself for our family. I remember the morning of the gender reveal party. I woke up with butterflies in my stomach. Not the bad kind, but the excited kind that made me feel like a kid on Christmas morning. I had no idea that in just a few hours, my entire world would come crashing down with a few careless words that Daxon thought were hilarious. I spent that morning putting on my favorite maternity dress, the blue one that made my bump look perfectly round, doing my hair in loose waves, and practicing my surprised face in the mirror for when we revealed the baby's gender. If I could go back and tell that version of myself what was coming, I'm not sure I would, because sometimes you need your whole world to fall apart before you can build something better. The party was in full swing by 2 o'clock that afternoon. Our backyard looked like something out of a magazine, with pink and blue streamers fluttering in the breeze, tables covered in gender-neutral treats, and everyone mingling with drinks in hand. My mom was showing baby photos to anyone who would listen. Daxon's dad was grilling burgers on our new barbecue, and kids were running around playing tag between the folding chairs we'd set up in a semicircle for the big reveal. I felt like the queen of my own little kingdom, greeting guests and accepting congratulations, with one hand constantly resting on my rounded belly. Aunt Patricia brought a beautiful handmade baby blanket. My coworker, Jessica, surprised me with a diaper cake she'd assembled herself, and even our elderly neighbor, Mrs. Chen, stopped by with a card and well wishes. Everyone kept asking when we were going to do the reveal, and I kept saying we were waiting for Daxon to get back from picking up ice. That should have been my first red flag of the day. Daxon had left 2 hours earlier for what should have been a 15-minute errand, claiming he needed to grab bags of ice from the gas station. When he finally showed up at 3:30, he wasn't alone. Zephyr and Kylo stumbled through our back gate with him, all three of them clearly having made several stops that had nothing to do with ice. I could smell the alcohol on them from 10 feet away. Zephyr's eyes were bloodshot, Kylo was swaying slightly as he walked, and Daxon had that loose, overconfident swagger he got when he'd been drinking during the day. They were loud and obnoxious, interrupting conversations and making jokes that weren't funny to anyone but themselves. I watched my grandmother's face tighten with disapproval as Kylo knocked over someone's drink while gesturing wildly during a story. "Sorry, babe. We ran into the guys at Murphy's and had to have a quick celebration drink," Daxon said, kissing my cheek with breath that reeked of whiskey. "You know, last hurrah before I become a family man and all that." I forced a smile and suggested we get started with the reveal, since everyone had been waiting. Vera helped me gather the guests into the semicircle we'd planned, and I retrieved the black balloon from where I'd carefully stored it in our kitchen. My hands were shaking slightly, not from nerves about the reveal itself, but from embarrassment about my husband's condition and the way his friends were behaving at what was supposed to be a family-friendly celebration. Standing in the center of our backyard with 30 people watching, I held up the balloon and started the little speech I'd been practicing. "Daxon and I are so grateful you're all here to share this special moment with us. In just a few seconds, we're going to find out if this little one is a boy or a girl, and we couldn't be more excited to take this next step in our journey together." That's when Daxon decided to open his mouth and destroy everything. "Hopefully it's mine," he shouted, grinning like he'd just delivered the punchline to the world's funniest joke. The laughter from Zephyr and Kylo was immediate and loud, the kind of obnoxious cackling that made everyone else uncomfortable, but it was Niven's reaction that really drove home how inappropriate the comment was. She'd been holding her phone up to record the moment, and she was so shocked that she spit her drink all over herself and nearly dropped her phone. The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel 30 pairs of eyes on me, watching to see how I'd react to my husband publicly questioning the paternity of our child. My face burned with humiliation, but I managed to keep that fake smile plastered on my face while my mind raced through 1,000 different emotions. "Could be the gym guys, right?" Daxon continued, apparently oblivious to the horrified expressions around him. "You spend enough time there with that trainer of yours." He was referring to Connie, my prenatal fitness instructor, who'd been helping me stay active during pregnancy. The comment was so far out of left field, so cruel and unnecessary, that I actually felt dizzy for a moment. Here I was, 6 months pregnant with what I thought was our planned and wanted child, being publicly humiliated by the man who was supposed to love and protect me. Vera stepped closer to me, her face flushed with anger on my behalf. "Lyrics, we don't have to do this right now," she whispered, but I could hear the fury in her voice. My grandmother looked like she wanted to march over and slap Daxon herself. My parents were staring at him with expressions of complete disgust. Even his own family seemed mortified by his behavior. But instead of falling apart like everyone expected, something inside me hardened. I looked at that black balloon in my hands and made a decision that would change both our lives forever. I popped that balloon with more force than necessary, and blue confetti exploded everywhere like a small celebration of its own. "It's a boy," I announced, my voice somehow steady despite the storm raging inside me. The crowd managed some polite applause, but the energy was completely wrong. This should have been a moment of pure joy, and instead, it felt like everyone was walking on eggshells around my drunk husband's cruel joke. I played the perfect hostess for the rest of the party, smiling and accepting congratulations, while internally planning Daxon's destruction. Guests started leaving earlier than expected, offering awkward hugs and avoiding eye contact. My parents cornered me in the kitchen, my mom whispering fierce questions about whether everything was okay at home, but I assured them I was fine, and that Daxon had just had too much to drink. The cleanup felt endless. Vera stayed behind to help me take down decorations, while Daxon passed out on the couch, still wearing his grass-stained khakis from stumbling around the yard. As we folded chairs and collected empty cups, I couldn't stop replaying that moment over and over. The way he'd said it, the casual cruelty, the complete lack of respect for me, or our relationship in front of everyone we cared about. "He was just drunk," Vera said, reading my thoughts. "Guys say stupid things when they're drunk." But I knew it wasn't just the alcohol talking. You don't joke about paternity unless the thought has crossed your mind before. And suddenly, all those late nights, the secretive phone calls, the new gym membership, it all started forming a picture I didn't want to see. 3 months later, baby Orion arrived after 14 hours of labor that Daxon spent complaining about the uncomfortable hospital chair. He held our son for the required photos, posted the obligatory "I'm a dad" message on social media, and then promptly returned to his normal routine of work, gym, and hanging out with Zephyr and Kylo. The late nights didn't stop after Orion was born. They got worse. Now he claimed he needed to decompress from the stress of being a new father. I was exhausted from night feedings and adjusting to life with a newborn, but my mind kept circling back to that humiliating moment at the gender reveal party. Every time Daxon looked at Orion, I wondered what he was really thinking. Did he see himself in our son's features, or was he looking for signs that Orion belonged to someone else? The breaking point came on a Tuesday night, when Orion was exactly 3 months old. Daxon had called to say he'd be late again, some story about the crew having to finish pouring concrete before it rained. But when I drove past his favorite bar on my way to pick up diapers, I saw his truck in the parking lot. Through the window, I could see him laughing with some woman I didn't recognize, his hand resting on her lower back in a way that made my stomach turn. I didn't confront him that night. Instead, I went home, fed Orion, and put him to bed like nothing had happened. But while Daxon was out destroying our marriage, I was making a decision that would destroy his entire life. The next morning, after Daxon left for work, I carefully collected a DNA sample from Orion using a cotton swab inside his cheek while he slept. Then I went into our bathroom and swabbed Daxon's toothbrush, the blue one he'd been using for 2 years. I packaged everything according to the instructions I'd found online and drove to the post office while Orion napped in his car seat. 2 weeks later, the envelope arrived with results that confirmed what my heart already knew. Daxon was not Orion's biological father. The real father was Kenyi, my personal trainer, from a brief affair I'd had during a particularly rough patch in our marriage when Daxon had been distant and cold. I'd ended things with Kenyi immediately and convinced myself it was a mistake that would never happen again. But now, staring at those DNA results while holding my beautiful son, I realized this wasn't just about the affair. This was about Daxon's complete lack of respect for me, his cruel public humiliation, and his continued cheating even after becoming a father. The DNA test results weren't just proof of paternity, they were my ticket to freedom. Instead of confronting Daxon immediately, I started planning something much more satisfying. If he wanted to make jokes about paternity in front of our friends and family, then he was going to get the full DNA reveal experience he'd asked for. I began organizing what I told everyone would be a celebration of Orion's first milestones, inviting the same guest list from the gender reveal party. This time, I would be the one delivering the punchline that would change everything. Planning Orion's milestone celebration felt like choreographing the most important performance of my life. I told everyone we were celebrating his 3-month birthday and some exciting developments in his growth, which wasn't technically a lie. I spent 2 weeks sending out invitations to the exact same guest list from the gender reveal party, making sure every single person who witnessed Daxon's humiliation would be there for his comeuppance. The setup was intentionally similar to the gender reveal party: same backyard, same folding chairs arranged in a semicircle, same festive atmosphere with balloons and decorations. I even ordered cupcakes from the same bakery, though this time they were simply blue, since we already knew Orion was a boy. Daxon seemed pleased that I was making such an effort to celebrate our son, completely oblivious to what was coming. Guests arrived around 2 o'clock on that sunny Saturday afternoon, cooing over how much Orion had grown and commenting on how well I looked for a new mom. My parents were there, beaming with grandparent pride. Daxon's parents had driven down from Portland again. Niven brought her new boyfriend, eager to introduce him to the family. Even Mrs. Chen from next door stopped by with a small gift for Orion. Vera arrived early to help me with final preparations, and I could see the concern in her eyes when I told her I had a special announcement planned. She'd been suspicious about the sudden party planning, especially since I'd been so secretive about the details, but I assured her everything would be fine and asked her to make sure she had her phone ready to record the moment. Daxon was in an excellent mood, playing the proud father role perfectly. He carried Orion around the yard, showing him off to relatives and friends, making jokes about how the baby had his eyes and his stubborn streak. Zephyr and Kylo were there too, thankfully sober this time, taking turns holding their nephew and making plans to teach him inappropriate jokes when he got older. At 3:30, I called everyone to gather in the semicircle, just like we had 3 months earlier. Orion was peaceful in my arms, wearing the little blue outfit I'd bought specifically for this occasion. The crowd settled into their seats, drinks in hand, faces expectant and happy. Several people had their phones out, ready to capture whatever milestone I was about to share. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate Orion today," I began, my voice steady and clear. 3 months ago, we gathered in this same spot for our gender reveal party, and it was such a special day that I wanted to recreate some of that magic. I saw Daxon's face light up at the memory, apparently having forgotten the cruel joke that had ruined that celebration for me. He was standing near the back of the group with his friends, bouncing slightly on his heels with that proud father energy. Some of you might remember that during the gender reveal, Daxon made a joke about hoping the baby was his and suggested it could be the gym guys instead. A few uncomfortable chuckles rippled through the crowd as people remembered that awkward moment. Well, I thought it was such a funny suggestion that I decided to actually get the DNA test he recommended. The smile started to fade from Daxon's face as my words sank in. I reached into the diaper bag at my feet and pulled out the manila envelope containing the paternity test results, holding it up for everyone to see. "According to this official DNA test," I continued, opening the envelope with deliberate slowness, "Daxon, you are not the father of this baby." The gasp that went through the crowd was audible. Someone dropped their drink. Niven's new boyfriend whispered, "Holy shit!" loud enough for everyone to hear. But I wasn't finished. "The biological father is indeed Kaney from the gym, exactly like you joked about 3 months ago. Isn't that hilarious?" I kept my voice light and conversational, as if I was sharing amusing baby facts instead of destroying my husband's entire world. Daxon's face went completely white. His mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air, but no sound came out. Zephyr and Kylo looked like they wanted to disappear into the ground. "Since your joke turned out to be so prophetic, I figured you'd appreciate the follow-up." I reached back into the diaper bag and pulled out a plane ticket and a manila folder. "Here's your one-way ticket back to your mom's house in Portland. And here are the divorce papers I filed yesterday morning." The silence was deafening. Then I pulled out my phone, held it up, and took a photo of Daxon's shocked expression, with the DNA results clearly visible in my other hand. "Smile for social media, honey. This is going to make such a great update to our gender reveal story." The photo I posted that day broke the internet in ways I never expected. Within hours, it had thousands of shares, and by the end of the week, it was featured on gossip blogs and morning talk shows across the country. The caption I wrote was simple: "Update from our gender reveal party. Got that DNA test hubby suggested. Turns out his joke wasn't so funny after all." Sometimes karma comes with confetti and court papers. The comments section became a battlefield between people calling me savage and others praising me for standing up for myself. Women shared their own stories of cheating husbands and public humiliation. Men argued about whether I'd gone too far, but honestly, I didn't care what strangers on the internet thought. The people who mattered, my real friends and family, had my back completely. Daxon tried to salvage his reputation by posting his own response, claiming I was vindictive and that he'd been joking at the gender reveal party. But the damage was done. Screenshots of his original posts bragging about his beautiful family, next to photos of him with various women at bars, started circulating. Zephyr and Kylo distanced themselves from him when their own girlfriends saw the viral post and started asking uncomfortable questions about their boys' nights out. The consequences for Daxon were swift and brutal. His construction company fired him within a week because the viral post was affecting their family-friendly reputation. Clients were canceling contracts, saying they didn't want to work with someone who treated his pregnant wife so poorly. His boss told him that having gender reveal Daxon on the payroll was bad for business. His dating life became a nightmare too. Every woman in our city recognized him from the viral post. I heard through mutual friends that he'd been stood up multiple times after dates Googled his name and found the story. One woman apparently told him at a coffee shop that any man who would humiliate his pregnant wife in public wasn't worth her time. Meanwhile, my life was transforming in the most beautiful way. Kanye stepped up immediately when he learned about Orion. He'd always been attracted to me, but he'd respected my marriage boundaries and kept things professional after our brief affair ended. Now, with everything out in the open, we started building something real together. Kanye moved in with us 6 months after the DNA reveal party, and watching him with Orion was like seeing a puzzle piece click into place. He did midnight feedings without complaining, changed diapers like a pro, and talked to Orion in that silly voice that made our son giggle. He was everything Daxon had pretended to be, but never actually was. The legal proceedings moved quickly since I had documented evidence of Daxon's infidelity, and he was eager to avoid more public embarrassment. He signed away his parental rights without a fight, probably relieved that he wouldn't have to pay child support for a child that wasn't biologically his anyway. I got the house, full custody of Orion, and a clean slate to start over. Niven surprised me by reaching out a few months later to apologize for her brother's behavior and ask if she could still be part of Orion's life. She'd always suspected Daxon was cheating, she admitted, but had been too afraid to say anything. Now she's one of our most regular babysitters and has become like a sister to me, instead of just an in-law. The viral fame opened unexpected doors too. I started getting messages from women asking for advice about their own relationship problems. A publisher reached out about writing a book about my experience. 3 different production companies wanted to option my story for a movie. I declined most of these opportunities because I wanted to focus on my family, but it was empowering to know that my moment of revenge had inspired other women to demand better treatment. Looking back now, almost 2 years later, I can honestly say that Daxon's cruel joke at our gender reveal party was the best thing that ever happened to me. It showed me his true character and gave me the motivation to discover the truth about my marriage. Without that moment of public humiliation, I might have spent years in denial about his cheating and disrespect. Orion is thriving with Connie as his father figure. He's walking now, saying Dada when he sees Connie, and has no memory of the man who questioned his paternity at a party. We've created photo albums that start with the day Connie officially became his dad, and that's the only father story Orion will ever know. If this story resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment below telling me about a time you stood up for yourself, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more real-life stories about love, betrayal, and the sweet taste of perfectly planned revenge. Sometimes, the best response to cruelty is simply telling the truth.